Okay. Yeah, I think we're holding on the bottom of Kuf Samach Gimel, 4 lines from the bottom. That's Kuf Samach Gimel Amid Aleph, 163. Yeah. Okay. We thank Hashem that we both learn Torah every day. It's we're learning. We should have the basic English immediately. Learning within Shmas having all the Basra Daf, and learning for Shleima for Avila ben Sarah. He gets Elias he gets parent, my father, then Miriam Adel. Okay. Right. We had a statement from Rav. The statement went that when you have 2 lines, 2 blank lines in between a document and the signatures of the witnesses, so the document was invalid. Because you could have added one of those lines, you could have added other information. Oh, that's a Mishnah, that's not Rav. But Rav says that Mishnah is only regarding the gap between the witnesses, the document, and then the witnesses, that gap. But if there's a gap between the witnesses and the ashrasa or the henpick and the validation of the document, that's acceptable. You can have a large gap. Yeah, that's what we learned from Rav. The Gemara asked, but 1 second, maybe you can forge something right before that. He said no, they're going to fill it in with things. So the hempick, that when you do the hempick, you're allowed to leave a gap. I guess they would fill it in with ink before they would do it. So the Gemara says, so why, if you're concerned about so if you're not concerned about anything because you fill it in with ink, so don't be concerned about anything by the witnesses when they sign, and also fill in the gap with ink. Why are you telling me puzzle and all this stuff? It's not puzzle. Fill it in with ink. You can do that underneath the signatures by the validation, by the notarization of the document. You can do that up top. It says no. When you do that up top, there's a concern. When you do it by the witnesses could be signing to something that's in that filled in with ink. They could be signing that it's filled in with ink and nothing was added to this, but they're not signing on the document itself. It could be that's just like you put a initials. You could be initialing to something there, but it doesn't mean that you're signing. You're validating. You're attesting to what's in the document. But when it could even be that in there it said something else. It said hello or whatever. But when it comes to the handpick, when it comes to the validation of the document, the Bezdin is not initialing those things that it's filled in or something. That's not what they're doing. They're testifying to the validity of the document. So that's why it's acceptable before the hempick to have empty lines that are just dots or lines. Before the signatures of witnesses, you can't have that. Yeah. Okay. Now we're holding Velechash. It's 4 lines from the bottom. That's where we're going to start. Velechash still Magayas Leila Ela. Maybe he's going to cut off the upper document. Umachak Leila Tiyuta. He's going to erase the ink spots that were just filled in, so that that nothing was written there. They're going to erase all of that. And what's he going to do? Because of my debaya machtem sadi v'amarav shtarabahu ve'edav alamecha kasha. The problem is that Rav has a statement that says that if you're allowed to use an erased document to have to write a new document with the signatures as well. You see, you obviously can't have signatures on a clean document, on a clean part of document, in the document on an erased, on a part that looks erased. Why? Because it got erased. The signature signed, you erased the top, and you wrote a new document. That's for sure. That's for sure a fraud, right? So, but let's say you have both the signatures and the document on erasure. So, what could the problem be, right? Yeah, well, they didn't have a lot of documents. You know, it was a big job. It wasn't like today. So they could erase it. So, and you wrote everything. So here you don't have the same problem that you would have if the witnesses had signed on a clean document, clean part of the document, but the upper part of the document itself was written on erasure. That's a reason to be concerned. But here everything was written on. So the question now is, let's say you erase the upper part of the you cut off the upper part of the document. You erase you don't have to cut it off now, but you just erase it. But you cut it off. Now you erase those dots that you made, those lines that you made that say that nothing was written there. And you erase that. And in that you write a new document. So-and-so owes money to Ruvain. And you forge signatures. And guess what you have on the bottom? You have the hempik. It's notarized.
How did they erase back then? What did they write with?
I think they erased with like a razor blade. With
really?
a sharp knife, they would scratch it off.
So that was
So it's obvious. It's obvious that it was erased once. Yeah.
Can you cross off? That's considered erasing too. So your document and like you just cross the line.
I think there is a concept of doing that, of crossing out, and you would write. What do they say? Yesh mechekal or something. Yesh something al this. I think there was a concept of crossing out, and then underneath you write that
your initials or
your initial. Right. I know in the passport paper they tell you if you make a mistake, take a new one. Don't cross anything out. It says over there on the top of it. Okay, so that's our question. Our question is that Rav told me that you're allowed to have these empty lines underneath the document. It's so interesting because this kasha is really on everything. You can always you can erase everything. It really doesn't have to do with really with Rav that says that you can have empty lines underneath the hempik, underneath the document before the hempik. Really, according to this kasha, according to the logic of the Gemara, this is a problem on every document, right? Because Rav says you're allowed to have signatures in the document on an erasure. So Hanicha Rav Kana de Maslim Shmei de Shmuel. If we say that this wasn't Rav that said it, and it was only Shmuel that said it, so then Shaper, because Rav would say that really it's possible to write on erasure. Okay, it's possible to write on erasure, so fine. So then there's no problem. But according to Rav, El Rav Tevyumi de Maslim Shmei de Rav, but Rav Tevyumi that taught this V'Amar Rav that we just had on the last page, that Shtar Haba Hu Ve'edav Alamecha Kasha, that a document and the witnesses that are on the erasure is kosher. According to that, that contradicts the Rav before that says that you're allowed to have an empty part of the document that just has lines filled in. Maybe you're going to cut off the top, erase the middle, and according to Rav, that's going to be kosher, and you have the hempik on the bottom. According to the way that I'm saying that really this is a kasha on every document. If you're allowed to write, so I don't need the statement of Rav before that makes a difference between the two edim, between if it's above the edim or if it's below the edim. Chayra, it's a kasha on even just even on Shmuel, it should be a kasha. Taisus asked this question. I'm asking. Taisus says that it's hard to erase an actual document, but it's easier to erase just those splotches of ink or dots of ink that you would put to show that nothing's written there. So we're really only asking if you have that, what we called a tiyuta. Tiyuta was those dots of ink. That's our cut. A full document is hard to erase.
Those dots go all the way from the end of the sentence to the margin.
Well, yeah, they would be in the lines that are between the signatures and the notarization.
Why is it hard to erase a full document?
Why is it hard to erase? It's the way Taisus puts it is, you're going to have the residual the letters, the old letters are still going to be visible, so it's going to be confusing to write on it.
This is like the Pirkei Avos.
That's right, Elisha ben Abuya, right? Is that Elisha ben Abuya?
Yeah.
What did he mean? What was he referring? Do you have any? What was Elisha ben Abuya referring to?
That he himself, right, had grown up with like Greek music and things like that, and that when he learned Torah later, like it wasn't like a clean slate.
Oh, so interesting. I saw that there's a historian Gretz. That he's not we don't like him, but I think he wrote that he was referring to Rabbi Akiva. He was telling Reb Meir that you should learn from me, not from Rabbi Akiva. I don't know.
That's what happens when you say bad things about Rabbi Akiva.
I'm sorry?
When you say bad things about Rabbi Akiva, there are consequences.
See what happens. Yeah. But your pshat's better. His mother was already, right? His mother was already eating on Yom Kippur, when she was ill. That's what the Gemara says, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the Gemara says that she passed by food and she smelt it and she felt like she had to eat it, so she ate it. And then the child came out like a heretic.
Really?
Anyway, okay. So Taisa says that erasure is going to be more difficult to use. So we're only talking about an erasure on those dots that would say that something was left empty. Okay. So according to Rav, but if it's Rav, according to Rav Tima, so what are we going to say? So Kasavar, we say like this: Rav holds. Yes, Rav says that a document, according to this opinion, that a document and the witnesses that are written over an erasure is acceptable. But if you do that, you can't use the bottom of the notarization. You have to revalidate it from the original signatures. So anytime you're using a document on an erased paper, right? The paper was used once already and you erased. You have to go back to validate the original signatures, not rely on the hempek that's underneath. To use a document like that, you have to get the signatures validated. Even if there's a hempek there, but if you want to collect with it, you have to get it validated to find the witnesses and testify that these are the actual signatures. Otherwise, someone could have erased it and wrote it in the document and wrote the witnesses' names. What do you mean have two hempek? The witnesses of the signature, the signatures of the witnesses have to be have to be validated. And the hempik, basically we ignore the hempik if the document is on an erasure. How's it going to help? Maybe they erased it and they wrote again. No, the hempik, you can't use the hempik. You have to validate it right away. Hempik just means that I don't have to ask anything on this document. But no, every time you have to revalidate the document. Okay. Rabbi Yechanan argues on Rav. He says, exactly the opposite. When did we say that you're allowed to have one line but not two lines? That's in between a document and the signatures. But in between the document, in between the signatures and the hempik, you can't even have one line. Exactly the opposite. Stricter. Why is that? What's the problem? If you have one line, Rabbi Yechanan's concerned that what you may do is you may write a very short document. Shimon owes Ruvain $100. Fill in 2 signatures on that one line, and then you have the hempik right underneath it. That's a big risk. You see, we allowed one line to be blank between the signatures because you were going to, what are you going to write over there? Whatever you write cannot be anything in addition because you can only redo the bottom line of a document is always just saying the aforementioned is confirmed, right? You can't add anything to the bottom line, so we're never worried about it. Comes along Rabbi Yechanan and says, yes, we are worried, not before the signatures, but we're worried after the signatures. You might write a brand new document and cut off the top. And the Kasavar, he holds star haba.
How can you do that? You're writing below the shvir of a kayam then.
Well, you got rid of that shar b'kayam, cut it all off. You cut off the top signatures. You cut all of that off. I have a hempik that's one line.
I see. So all that's left is the henpeck.
All that's left is the hempik with a line with a margin on top. In that margin, you're gonna write Shimon owes Ruvain $100, and Levi aid and Yaakov aid, and then it says on the hempik Yaakov, and we've seen the signatures of Yaakov and hempik, and we've established that it's correct.
I guess the point of the henpeck is mainly, I'm trying to wonder why you need it, because it's come to your base din, and your base din has authenticated it and said, okay, this is valid. I guess it's if he wants to take the henpeck and go to another city.
That's usually why it was done. The way when we would send a get to some other state or overseas, we would have to validate the signatures, not of the get, but signatures that came along with the documents that came along with the get. Who's the shliach? There were documents that says who's the shliach. Those signatures we would need to validate. So we would have the people sign in front of the Beis Din. Let's say there was a document that said that I forget what the document was called that came along with it. That so-and-so was a shliach on the get. We were sending this document that says that so-and-so is a shliach on the get, and he should deliver it to then that document was signed. Under those signatures, we would write that we witnessed in front of 3 people. We witnessed these people sign it, and then we would the Beis Din would sign that. How do they know the Beis Din signatures? This says the Beis Din signature. So we would have to sign 3 other pieces of paper, just our signatures there, just to sign it, and that would be used to validate. Those signatures would be used to validate the signatures on the hempik, which would be validating the signatures on the document. Yeah. Anyway.
Sounds like it would be easier to just call them up or use FaceTime.
Everything is so traditional. Yeah, and with the checklists, you ever see how they do this? But like the pilot has a checklist.
Oh yeah.
Did you check the thing? Yeah, check the thing. Check, like a surgeon would say, do we, they have to go over ask all the questions. That's how they do it by a get. So are you sure that this was done? And yeah, and you ask it again. Yeah. Okay. So let's see, Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, yeah, we're holding now that Rabbi Yochanan has a concern that maybe on that one line you're going to write a full document, and Rabbi Yochanan holds that an entire document plus witnesses all on one line are kosher. The Gemara says, "Ma'ishna ben Edom lashersa, dil magayis li'iloi v'kasavu v'edem b'shitachas v'tzavar shtar abahu v'edem b'shitachas kosher. Yachi ben Edom l'ksav nami dil magayis li'iloi v'kasav ma'idavoi v'chas misadi." Yeah, what's happening? He says, what are you worried about? You're going to write an entire document on the line right above the hempit. You have one line there. As well, maybe you're going to do the same thing on the one line in between the document and the witnesses. Maybe you'll write another document right there. Right? You're allowed to have one empty line in between the document and the witnesses. So in Rabbi Yochanan says that that's kosher. Rabbi Yochanan says under the witnesses before the hempit gets puzzled because you might write a full document there. Well, guess what? You might write a full document before the witnesses and have other witnesses sign it. Or actually, before we have other witnesses, the Gemara here just says, and you have the witnesses signed underneath. Cut off the top and you have a brand new document. That one line that we thought was going to only restate what was said in the earlier document, yeah, that's if you're going to leave the earlier document on there, but you can just cut it off. And then you write a whole new document, you have the witnesses, and underneath it, you have a hempit. Says, it answers this question. Ihachi, okay. The witnesses have signed. So the Gemara answers, Kasavar shtar habahu b'shita achas ve'edav b'shita acheres pasal. When does Rabbi Yochanan say that you can get a whole document onto one line? That's only if you put the witnesses onto that line. But if you put a whole document on one line and the witnesses on another line, that's pasal. Why is it pasal? Exactly because of this problem. They made it pasal. Because the bottom line of a document always has to record what was said earlier, nothing new. And if you're going to allow a document to be a full document on one line, two witnesses with the lines underneath, then you'll always be able to cut off the top of the document and put it in that one line. So Rabbi Yochanan says, no, if you have the signatures on the same line, then that's an acceptable document. But a document on one line, signatures underneath, that's not acceptable. What do you have to do? You have to have the document has to be at least two lines. Gemara says, well, you can still forge this because what you can do is you can get an entire document into that one line, plus add the witnesses. Shimon owes Reuven $100. Yaakov aids, Levi aid or whatever. And you put the whole thing, and then on the bottom you have Reuven aid, and so why you have other witnesses there? He says, well, I wanted more people to know about it, and I have a hempik on the second witnesses. Gemara says, if that's the case, when you have a document like that with the witnesses on the same line plus witnesses underneath, you have to validate the document from the witnesses that are on the same line, not the ones underneath. We're correcting all possible, you fill in the holes so the mice don't get in, you know what I'm saying? You have to go to every spot. We're blocking every hole where someone could possibly forge something. Okay, Gufa. Going to go back to analyze something that was said before. Rav said, There's a document that the document itself plus the witnesses were on an erasure. That's going to be acceptable. So again, not if the document's on an erasure, but the witnesses are on a clean part of the document, that would for sure be puzzle. But if the document and the witnesses are both on the erasure, then that's going to be acceptable because they reused an old paper and it's good. But maybe you'll say, you erase the top twice. Yes, the signature signed to this new document that's written on an erasure that said that Shimon owes Ruvain $50, but you erased it and you put in Shimon owes Ruvain $100, and the signatures are there. And what are you going to do? It was erased already, right? You can see it was erased, and now you erased it again and you wrote again. And you have the signatures are signed on a part of the document that was erased one. The Gemara says, you're able to tell. You're able to tell if it was erased twice. So you're going to see that the signatures are on a single erasure. The document on the top is on a double erasure. Already suspicious. Yeah. Still mashadi di yusa makamedim mikara machaklei. This guy's brilliant. Listen what he does. He throws ink on the part where the witnesses are supposed to sign. It was erased once. He puts more ink on it and he erases the witnesses twice. He erases that spot second time. The top was only erased once. He writes on the top, Shimon owes Ruvain $50. Gets the witnesses, he gets the witnesses to sign on the double eraser. Then he goes back and he erases the top. And he puts in Shimon owes Ruvain $100. And he has the signatures there already, and both of them were erased twice, and it looks even.
Can you tell if something was erased 10 times or 2 times?
Well, you definitely can tell the difference in 1 and 2.
Yeah, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Right?
So more than that could be as well. But right now, here's what the Gemara is holding.
So you make a hole.
So you make a hole, yeah. So the Gemara answers, Amar Abaya says to this problem, Kasava Rav holds that Rav is allowing this, but Rav holds, that in such a case, the witnesses are only allowed to sign, or witnesses would not sign, or maybe they're not allowed to sign, if they saw what was there before and they saw it being erased. Now, which means that they're going to be able to tell right away that if there's some issue here, if it was erased once, erased twice, and as they're watching it being erased.
At the time of the Gemara, was there only parchment? Was paper available in that
I think
time?
they had papyrus.
Papyrus.
Yeah. Maybe they had other types of paper. I don't know. They had Megillah. No, they definitely had scrolls. That's when it says Megillah Sefer and Matzasi Megillah Sefer. Definitely had scrolls, parchment scrolls.
Well, parchment, yeah, but I'm wondering what else they had, because I guess you can make parchment so shiny and, buff it up so much you could scrape off letters without necessarily showing it. But paper, it sinks in. I don't know.
I think on the parchment also, I think you weren't able to tell. I think you were able to tell if it was
sinks in.
If it was erased. Because you would treat it differently. The scratching of it would take away the luster on the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moshe, how do you erase on a if you have to erase something on parchment.
No, when I erased the Sefer Torah, you cannot tell I was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And how do you do that? You don't scratch it out? Yeah.
Well, there's different, and then even when there's scratching, there's rubbing, there's sandpaper. I mean, you'll never tell.
So you retreat the parchment to make it like it's new.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then when I rewrite it, you cannot tell I was there.
Wow. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I can forge things if you want me to.
Yeah, okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Remember they had these guys that would forge like antiques. That was like a big thing. It was they I forget the guy's name, but they would make believe they had old documents. They went into his apartment and they found like all types of things, making paper look old and yeah. Okay, so Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. Hu ala niyar ve'edav ala mechek kasher. This is the opposite of the problem. If the document is written on a clean paper, but the witness is signed on an erasure, so that's kosher. Okay? We weren't concerned about forging witnesses' signatures. That wasn't a concern. We were concerned about forging what's in the document. The witness is signed. We'll check who signed it, right? We can validate, right? We'll ask, is this your signature? Or does anyone recognize the signature? So if it's written over the signatures on an erasure was not terrible. It's the document on an erasure which was a problem. The Gemara says, because of my debay, so one second. If you're going to do that, you're starting off with a potential problem, because if you tell the witnesses, yeah, there's no problem, you're allowed to sign on an erasure. Okay, so they signed on an erasure, and the document was written on a clean document, but now you may go ahead and erase the top of the document, and the rule is that a document and signatures on an erasure is kosher. And you'll rewrite it. Mari answers that when witnesses sign on an erasure, they have to write the kasvi hachi. They write the following: Anachnu sadi chasamna al machka v'shtara kasav al niyara. You have to put that in, that we're signing on an erasure, and the document is written on clean paper. There's nothing you can do now. Well, not so fast. The Gemara says, the kasvi hecha. Where did you write it? Where did they write this? If you wrote it underneath the signatures, he'll just chop it off. If it's on the top, what's the problem with that? Machiklei, he erased the whole thing. He just erased the whole document. He'll erase that as well. So how does this sound? How do you get? So it says the kasvi ben sadi lasada. He wrote it in between the two signatures. Well, he wrote it in between the two signatures. Maybe you can erase that as well. Maybe you'll erase that as well. Maybe the problem is the guy is lasadi. The Gemara says that if you're going to erase it, then you're going to see that something was erased twice. Or maybe there's going to be a gap. Maybe you wrote it in a way that you're going to say, like, what was erased from here? Right? They say it looks like something was erased. What was erased from this signature? You wrote it in between. Maybe it takes 3 lines. Maybe the signature, the kasva, not the chasmi anachna. What is it? What do they write? Anachna sadi chasamna al niyara, that line, and then there's the signature underneath. And they say, hey, what got erased from the middle of those signatures?
Why don't they just write it? Because technically not supposed to leave the space.
Right.
But this
Yeah.
way it's all one line.
Maybe that's what it means. The kasvi bein sadi lasada means amongst the signatures. I mean, yeah. Over here it says between the two, but maybe if it would be on that same line, that would also be good. Okay. Gemara says, oh, I'm sorry, I was asking the Gemara's question. No. The kasvi said, okay, Yihachi, if that's the case, Ema Seifa, let's go further. It says, Hu ala mechak be'edav al niyar. Let's say he wrote the document on an erasure, but the signatures are on a regular document, right? On a clean paper. So that's puzzle. We said it's obviously puzzle because the document could have been erased and rewritten, and then which is a problem, right? So we said that's puzzle. So why should that be puzzle? I have a solution. Am I puzzle? Why don't they write? Let them write that we signed on a clean paper, but the document was written on an erasure. Why do we say that that's possible? I mean, we were saying the whole time that that's a classic forgery, right? You erase the document and you rewrite it and you leave the signature. But maybe not. Maybe it's not a problem because you can add in that line that says that we've signed on a clean paper and the document is on an erasure. And now it should be acceptable. Gemara says, 1 second. Hashtanami, my amrit. What can you say? Maybe you'll erase it twice. It said originally up there that Shimon owes Reuven $50. The witnesses signed to it. They say that that was written on an erasure. Our signatures are written on clean paper. That's what they wrote. The problem is that he's going to go and erase it. And the 50 is going to add in 100. Going to make it 100. It says Amrit, but 1 second. That's not a problem. Amrit ain't a nimchak pamach nimchak shtei pamim. Says, but you can't. But that's going to be identifiable. You'll be able to tell that it was erased twice. They didn't say that it was written on something that was erased twice. They said it was written on something that was erased once. The Gemara says, "Hani mili hechadachas misadi amachka." That's only if the witness is signed on an erasure, and document is on an erasure, and one of them was twice, one of them was once. You'll be able to compare that it doesn't look the same. You can't tell. Okay, that's why it's puzzle, because you're going to be able to erase it twice, and even if the witnesses say that the document is on an erasure, but you'll be able to erase it a second time, and you won't be able to tell that it was erased twice. It's only when you have a comparison can you tell that one was erased once and one was erased twice. Gemara says, "V'leisi megilta achrita v'limchak v'lidmei." Why can't you take another document, erase once, and see if the top document is erased once or erased twice? You're complaining that you can't tell if it was erased once or twice. Why not? Bring another document and compare. Erase it and see if it looks the same. It says, you can't compare two parchments. This one was erased from this parchment, this was erased on that parchment. Every parchment is different. You can't tell if this one was a double erasure. That only on the same document you could tell. And here I only have the witnesses are on a clean document. Top of the document is erased. They're telling me that it's erased, but I can't tell if it was once or twice. Right. Right. The Gemara is saying that the document, the parchments are going to be different, but it could be the way they erased could also be. So the Gemara says like this. New question. What we can do is like this. A little bit complicated, but let's get witnesses to come and to say that they recognize the signatures. Then we'll erase the signatures. we don't need them anymore because we have witnesses that testified that their signatures are there and they recognize them. Okay. V'limchik, v'lidmi. And now let's erase the signatures. And on the same document, you told me that you can compare. So once you erase the signatures, then we'll be able to compare if it's erased once or if the top of the document was erased once or twice. And we're going to hold on to the top of the document. The bottom of the document had the signatures. We now have witnesses, and we'll be able to compare if it's once or twice, how many times it was erased. Rav Aishia says that's not acceptable because this one was erased today. That one was erased a few days ago. Can't compare. The Gemara says, "V'lashaya." So let's age it, and we'll come back in a week. We'll see if it works. Right? It's only the first day that you would have that difference. You're making it so complicated that we're concerned that the Besdin may not go through all of these details and accept it. So because of that concern, we say that anytime there's witnesses that are signing on a clean document and the document is on an erasure, because it's so complicated to clarify all of this, we just say that it's possible.
Documents between Jews and
Yeah. Let's leave it over here. Okay. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good night.